session with architect Shirish Beri. Architect Shirish Beri's works, which strive to address his life values and concerns, have been bearing a distinct mark on modern Indian architecture since 1975. His works have been widely published and have won him a number of national and international awards and recognitions, including 2 nominations for the Aga Khan Award, Japan Design Foundation Prize, 2 Acacia Gold Medals, the highly coveted J.K. Great Masters Award, and the A+D Hall of Fame Award. He has also been awarded the Indian Institute of Architects' highest honor, Baburao Matre Gold Medal, at National Convention of the Indian Institute of Architects in Hyderabad on 14th May 2022. This award is only given to one Indian after every 2 years, and some of the renowned past recipients of this award are Architect A. Joshi, Architect Charles Korea, Architect A. P. Kanunde, Architect Anant Raj. He has been invited to chair and give talks, slideshows, and conduct design workshops in various professional and educational institutions here and abroad. His books, Spaces Inspired by Nature and Wanderings and Wanderings, exhibitions, Search for Wholeness and Healing, and 2 films, The Unfolding Light and Good Space, on his life and work, have been received very well globally. We welcome you on stage.
Good afternoon, friends. I thank Tushar and his RAF team for inviting me here today. I am afraid some of you have left for lunch already because this was not clear to me. Anyway, my presentation today is based on the premise that spaces have a life of their own and thus can have empathy or can induce empathy in the users. Thus, empathy is that silent, sympathetic communication and understanding between 2 or more entities. I have always felt and experienced this universe as a rich, diverse, pulsating, living whole, with me as a minuscule, intrinsic part, thus feeling that tremendous empathy for everything and everyone around me. So very naturally, space, which is a universal, omnipresent container, happens to be alive too. The space that we see, hear, feel, smell, and sometimes even taste. This space exists beyond the apparent paradoxes, and simultaneously lives in both. It can be all-pervasive, vyapta, and subtle, sukshma, at the same time. It takes on various akar, forms, while being formless, nirakar. Though attributeless, nirgun, it embodies countless qualitative saguna attributes. So as one probes the meaning of space, one discovers that there is a constant reciprocal dialogue between our outer physical space and the bhutakash and our inner psychological space, that is the chidakash. As architects, space is our main and true medium, a wonderful multi-dimensional and multi-sensory medium to play and design with. But unfortunately, many a times we see that architecture is equated with the iconic, eye-catching facades with cosmetic graphic compositions made up of glossy, expensive imported materials. Thus, the theme of this conference focuses on the metamorphosis from the heritage to modernism. So naturally, change is the only constant in our lives. So today, I wish to focus on the perennial human values where there has hardly been any change that have been with us since hundreds of years. Space has an amazing potential to evoke many varied emotions in us. This is what I call spatial empathy. So when today is closed in, while living in today's closed-in self-centered spaces would be like spaces that help in expanding our consciousness and making us feel an integral part of the nature. Like this was the site where I want, like the spaces inside felt that they should communicate, they should have empathy with the surroundings. So this is what happened. That's my lake house. Or this is the National Center for Cell Sciences in Pune, where the hill was brought into the campus and created that empathy, relationship of empathy with architecture and nature. This was a site, a small site, only just 5,000 square feet with a tree in it. So this is what happened. I integrated the tree within the building. And so these spaces help us in bringing us closer to nature. These hills beyond act as the spaces are defining element. Or even in Operation Theatre, we have a terrace garden outside which creates a very different ambience. A bathroom, my evening place of reverie at Marriott House. So in a world with divisive, secure, exclusive spaces that we were talking about, that show mistrust and isolation, can we create interactive spaces that are friendly, open, inclusive, and democratic? This is a hospital, the large hospital, where we created these open courtyards and spaces around where anybody from anywhere can come and sit and relax and even lie down there on the benches. I don't know whether the Habib is here, we talked about that. He's gone for lunch maybe. This is another hospital for Ayurveda with the god of health, Dhanvantari there, and which every evening people gather there. This is the Institute of Management Development that I did in Mysore, where people from different areas gather here, have chance meetings and interact. The same place with an open air theatre, being used in different ways at different times. The same place in the corridor. Actually, this corridor was later covered with wire, pergola and creepers, so created a shaded pathway. This is in Hyderabad, where we created these spaces with the help of nature. So, creating spaces like this, these spaces themselves become evocative, talkative, interactive, and people tend to use them in that manner. This is the drug de-addiction that I did in Pune, where openness, we have to balance between security and freedom. So the inmates couldn't go out for 5 weeks and they were contained inside. But while they were contained inside, they were continuously interacting with each other. So spaces were created where they could interact, and that acted as therapy for the patients, like this. This is a school where we included that tree as in the center of the complex. And the kids developed a very good rapport with it. The flooring became, we inlaid chessboard with the flooring, and then the music classes were happening under the tree. Or places like this near the houses. So in an anthropocentric society, which seems to justify the exploitation of nature, its resources, and its species, should we not design and build symbiotically with that caring concern and reverence, respect for nature, and live in harmony with all natural species, living and non-living? This was my site here at Hyderabad, and it was, I fell in love with these rocks. And though our site ended there, I convinced my clients to acquire land on that side. We gave a good piece of our land to the farmers, and we acquired the land on the other side, so that my building could be a tribute, would be a homage to these old, ancient natural heritage, million-year-old, more than millions of year old natural heritage. These same rocks look like this. I was asked to design a farmhouse in near Nagpur, a 12-acre site, and the client wanted me to build somewhere else. But I was fascinated like this banyan tree and the beda tree at the back, and I decided to make them part of this complex. That's the banyan tree which you see inside here. You know, the pointer doesn't work on this tree. So it is like this, right from the veranda. And it's very surprising that I kept getting calls from the owner of this house since he started using this very often. And every time he would say that this space has changed me. This space has changed me. He would give me example that he was quite an angry person, and he would, at the slightest incident on the road, he would get into road rage and all that. But he says, since I am living in company with this tree and in that environment, his whole kind of nature has kind of changed also. You can see the tree from the bedroom, from the living room, from everywhere. This was the tree in that school complex which I just showed. And here the students were asked to write an essay on my best friend, these small students. And majority of the students wrote an essay on this tree as their best friend. So this is what architecture can do, this is what spaces can do. These kids when they grow up, they will hesitate to cut a tree because of the rapport that they have developed with this tree in their formative years. This was a computational mathematics lab for TIFR in City University campus, and they wanted a typical IT building with glass and concrete and all that. I said, let me see the site first. So when I saw the site, I found these beautiful trees and all that. And I asked the director, why can't your scientists sit out under a tree and work? He said, yeah, why not? I'll give them very high-end laptops. And this is what happened. Just outside the building, no air conditioning, but whenever the weather is good, it will sit there. This was my beach house, and here actually I come to the pointer is that it doesn't work on this. It doesn't work. There are a couple of existing casuarina trees there. So we created the entrance to this house through the casuarina trees, which you see in the first slide. So every time I entered the house, I would say hello to them, and go. Or every time I went out of the house, I said goodbye. And this is the empathy that you develop with the so-called non-living things, the living things. And this other window is framing the external tree as a light painting. And this empathy happens not only with people and trees, but also with other natural elements like this waterfall. When I used to live on the mountain top, the first house, I hardly had a bath in my bathroom during the rainy season. I would go and sit under the waterfall. And after the bath, I would literally, in my own language, say, not Marathi, but I'm saying international language, empathy, language of empathy, I would say thank you to the waterfall. Not only with this, these are my companions. The panther used to come and stay and live in the lower space of my house. I would see it go past in the morning. And the panther felt safe there, and I felt safe in this company because this is the empathy that I'm talking about. Or the lizard would come and have breakfast, sit next to me at breakfast time, and the monitor lizard lived in my fall ceiling. Even today at my lake house, the monitor lizard lives there. Then there are the other birds and animals which frequent my place surrounding. And of course, our domestic animals, or the birds, the bird bath, and my cats and dogs. Now, what I want to drive it here is, I would like to say a quote, a saying by Nani Palkiwala when he says, I agree with Nani Palkiwala when he says that we seem to be living in a society that is suffering from the fatty degeneration of our conscience. Just listen to this, very beautifully. We are suffering from the fatty degeneration of our conscience, where our single-minded pursuit of money is impoverishing our mind, shriveling our imagination, and desiccating our hearts. So this is what happens. This was my farmhouse at another very important, and I sold it to a friend, and unfortunately that friend died after a few years, and his son has taken over, and see what this place has become now. I was shocked, I was heartbroken when I visited this place just 2 months back. This was the place earlier with those existing trees and the house smuggled inside the trees. And this son, who is only interested in money, he has cut those trees, sold the trees just for a few lakhs, which would last him only for a few months, 2-3 months. This is what happens when there is no empathy. And when our basic priority in life is the single-minded pursuit of money. This is what it was earlier. My sitting place, dining space, sometimes to sleep here also, where the inside and outside is so well connected. Same thing. The earlier, before, after. So can we dare to create restrained, simple, dignified, sustainable spaces in a world that seems to glorify greed, unsustainable overconsumption, and commodification? I'm talking about simple, sustainable spaces. But this is my living space at my lake house now. Some of you have seen it. And if I actually, this is the living space on this side. So if I sit here, I'm in the living room, I'm facing all of you and talking. When I feel hungry, I just turn around and I'm at the dining table. And after dining food, I can take a siesta here also. Lie down. So life can be really very simple, but we're complicating it, making really unsustainable spaces which are used only for a few days in a month. Bedroom. My workspace. I've been working like this for the last 48 years, 47 years, and I've designed millions and millions of square feet of space designs. Simplicity, this is the beach house. Like we don't have air conditioning in our house. So what happens is we have a nice terrace sit out. We put a mosquito net there and sleep there. And the temperature there is 23 degrees, 24 degrees, and very comfortable. So this is sustainability. It's basically about our attitudes in life. Our caring concern and concern for everyone and everything around us. Or maybe the living room could duplicate as a dining space by shifting the pillows closer, or it could become a bed space when the table is removed and the cushions are joined. So it becomes a bedroom. On some projects, we have not imported a single stone from outside. All the stones that we have used in the building, or from the road, or from the compound wall, were obtained on the site itself. This is the house I live in outside the outskirts of the city, where we have not bought a new tile, we have not bought a new stone, we have not steel. Everything is brought from the scrap market or from the demolished buildings. So that reduces my embodied energy and makes the house more sustainable. See, these are broken tiles which I got for nothing from the tile market. This is Vita Gold, natural tile. The ceiling is made from packaging wood. The gate and the fencing is made from broken pieces of, waste pieces of tall steel, which you find on any site. Not a single Mangalore tile is new. Then the old windows and doors have been used. Even the steel for the reinforcement is bought from the scrap market. The structural steel is also bought from the scrap market. Then we are self-sufficient in terms of drinking water. We don't use drink a single glass of corporation water. We have heating, we have solar electric generation, we have a large rainwater harvesting tank for domestic water. Or even adaptive reuse. I think the palace station was on that. We converted this old palace into a hotel. So adaptive reuse is also a sustainable way of doing things. And we also preserve their heritage. So instead of creating spaces that tend to separate, divide, and fragment, can we have spaces that unify, integrate, and empathize visually, physically, and psychologically? Like, look at this. We're talking about equity. No, I'm sorry, I went under the wrong this thing. Instead of being expressions of human exploitation, social injustice and inequity, can our spaces become expressions of our empathy for the less privileged people as well as our environment? Look at this, 13 crores meant for the car, and the guy across the street sleeps like this. We went to a school near Kolhapur in a remote area where these were the boys' toilets. And the girls didn't have any toilets. So we decided to design and build a toilet from them entirely from our own cost, and see how happy the kids are. The girls' toilets are being cleaned by the boys because they're happy to have these toilets. Or there was a neglected space near my house somewhere, and which was used for antisocial things. Under that water tank, it was all dilapidated. So we converted that into a more usable public space, more which is open, democratic. Or there are many areas where we find all barren lands. So we do a lot of afforestation there, above also and below. Or we also done some work, designing work for the people who have suffered in the floods or in the COVID. So we've done this housing for the flood affected people. So how to bring about empathy is very easy also. Is that you have to just cut on the dotted line and turn it 180 degrees. So the me-centric concept becomes we-centric, So we work together. So this is the last couple of minutes. Instead of creating spaces that tend to separate, divide, and fragment, can we have spaces that unify, integrate, and empathize, visually, physically, and psychologically? This is a large hospital that we designed with. So the patients feel very interconnected. An agriculture college courtyard, a guest house, a hospital for craniofacial surgery. And these courtyards could not only bring in light, ventilation, but they also create a sense of health. And they kind of the symbols of good health. These natural species. Something wrong with it? The remote house. This is a small house, but again a unified space. A recent school that we did, a small courtyard in that school. So this is what happens when the student from that side interacts with the student from this side in the courtyard or across the balcony. Then empathy starts happening also. So this is the last one. Can we create spaces that add value to our lives with that semblance of pause, silence, and introspection amidst the chaotic, extrovert background noise in our society? There's always a constant background noise that we feel in our society that we live in. So can we create spaces with that pause and with that silence? So, can we feel space as that pause and silence in our life? Can living as an inseparable part of this unified space inspire empathy in us? Can space encourage tolerance by granting each one their space? how can we create that space within and without, which would translate into greater harmony, compassion, and joy in our lives. My spaces did not be designed to create iconic, grand exhibitionist forms, cultural forms that attract the eye, but to create more humane, socially relevant, more natural, and sustainable spaces that nurture the human spirit. Thank you so much.
Very interesting presentation. Your projects are of use for everyone. To thank you, I now invite architect Rekha Nemani and present a small token of thanks from RAF. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.